Hi, everyone. It's me, Dr. Stacy Betancourt, with another edition of Making Sense with Dr. Stacy. So the theme of today, it's called Timelines and Deadlines. And it kind of has to do with what I've been talking about over the last couple of weeks with going after your dreams and making your opportunities and kind of that theme. So let's talk about timelines and deadlines. Well, first of all, let's make sure we understand the difference. A timeline is a line that you set up for yourself. It could be a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 months, 2 years, 5 years. And it's a timeline where you spend the time going after what you're doing, whether it's because of schooling or if it's because of the financial, which is a huge valid reason. And I've heard others recently saying, forget the finances, just dive. Well, that's great. For those, if that works for you, that works for you. I, on the other hand, am like others who just can't leave. So, okay, what's a deadline? Well, the deadline are the absolute due dates that you give yourself along the way that hopefully, if you stick to the timeline and the deadline, when you reach your very last deadline, things should be exactly where you want them to be. So let me give you a scenario. Okay, right now I am in law school. And I am behind. I am not going to lie. I am behind because there are so many things in my life that are pulling on me and pulling me away from my studies. Well, I have the timeline where I need to be completed in 4 years, and I'm in my first year. The deadline for me right now is I need to have all of my work completed, submitted before January so that I can take my final exam for the year in February. Those are hard deadlines. Another scenario that I'm working on is I am working on something that will help finance some of the things and the projects I want to do so that I don't have to work as hard in my day job. So those timelines, my timeline is in one full year, I want to be in a position where I am dedicating less to a day job and more to what I want to be doing. And that is coaching, public speaking, mediating, getting working on the book that's still sitting in my drive, um, not doing anything because you know what, the book doesn't write itself. But those are timelines. That's a timeline I have for myself. Now, my deadlines, as far as what I want to be doing, my deadline is within a year's time. So that deadline is something that I am now working toward in order for this to work. And so I'm it's really kind of hard to get started because there's so many things you have to do. And granted, I am not the kind of person that does things halfway, and I'm sure a lot of you are the same way. You have to give dedication to the day job, whether it's, your passions there or not, you still have to give 100%. So how do you give 100% to that and still make your timelines? Well, I'm learning right now that I have too many things on my timeline. So are my deadlines realistic? Probably not. So I'm going to need to take some evaluation time and think about it. My deadline for school is absolute. And the program that I'm in, I either finish on time or I'm out. So then there's money lost. It's an investment loss that will lead me to things that will open up doors. So I need to now really evaluate what I'm doing to get rid of the things that I don't need in my life that's clogging the timelines that will eventually affect the deadline. So you may be asking, well, how do I know this? Well, you only have so many hours in a day to do the things you have to do. And I'm also looking at several things that are temporary. Right now, I'm in very heavy training for the Chicago Marathon. And so that's taking more time than I anticipated. I'm also looking at what I am doing in my very little downtime that's clogging me and keeping me from meeting my timeline. And that's a real hard one, because if I don't allow myself downtime, then it's all going to fall apart, because you have to allocate yourself that. So you have to look at this as, are you chasing your own timeline, or is the timeline working for you? Well, right now my timeline is not working for me. It's not. So I have to do things that will clean up the timeline so that I will meet the deadline, which is the ultimate goal. So how do you do that? You really have to take a look at yourself and ask yourself, is what you're doing important enough to sacrifice a little bit more to get you where you want to be? Now, if my goal is to be out of the day job in a year's time, then I need to start looking at things. And yes, is that giving up some downtime? Yes. Right now, my training for the marathon is anywhere from an hour to 2 hours a day. And that could be time spent. Well, this is all temporary, because the marathon comes in 6 weeks' time. After that, then it's not like I'm going to give up working out, but as intensely, I will back off on that, because I'm trying for a goal. Now, the thing is that there's money and expense that have been invested in this. So I can't just let that go. And I need to do my best. I am definitely running that marathon. I am definitely giving my heart and my all being into that moment. And then when that moment's over, there will be a sit back and reevaluate time. Will I be working out every day 1.5 to 2 hours a day? No. Could I give myself an hour? Absolutely. Because it's really important, not only for my mental health and my overall self, but my endurance, my physical health, all of it. So it's noting that. Sometimes I am like other people who fall down the rabbit trail of social media. Now, I rely on social media for a lot of what I do with my practice. And so there's a validity, and am I working or am I playing and mind numbing? Because mind numbing is never good. The mind numbing definitely gets in the way of the timeline, which ultimately affects the deadline. So that's a really tough question that you have to ask yourself. Is what you're doing helpful to your timeline, or is it going to kill your deadline? And so it's looking at, how important is this end goal for you? And that's what you have to ask yourself. If the end goal is not, if you're not passionate about it, then maybe you need to reevaluate it. You may not need it in your life. And you may decide that you were working hard, sacrificing hard towards something you don't even want. So you have to want it badly enough. And for me, I absolutely want it badly enough. So I am having to look at myself and having to look at what I'm doing and what I'm not doing. And I'm having to make those adjustments in order for me to be successful in the avenue and presence that I want to be successful with. So quickly recap, what do? Deadline, timeline to deadline. Organize your timeline so that you're using the best of your time. If there's something that you have a deadline for that you want really strongly, then your timeline should plan. So I've talked before about backwards planning. So you backwards plan from your deadline through your timeline to make sure that when you hit the milestones that you are looking for, you are meeting them on time. Because you wouldn't be late to an appointment that involves someone else. So why would you be late for yourself? Just something to think about. So make those deadlines. Have that dream. Make those deadlines. Design your timeline so that you will meet your deadline and the success that you're going for. Because we're all worth it. You're definitely worth it. And I know I am too. So think about what you want to do this week. Reevaluate your timelines. Make sure that you are ready to meet that deadline, because that deadline is really important and something really special. And if it's not, find something that'll make it really special. So in the meantime, be good to yourself. Be good to other people. We don't know what they're going through. So have a little bit of grace, and it'll make you feel better, and it'll make them feel better. So have a great week. This is Dr. Stacy Betancourt with another edition of Making Sense with Dr. Stacy. Take care, and I'll see you next week.